Good morning and happy Easter here on 25 Live at Home. We are so glad that you joined us this morning, and we are just so excited to celebrate with you. We are so excited about the resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We thank you for this very special Sunday that you and your family are taking time out of your week to join us. We are just so thrilled that you are with us because He is risen. He is risen indeed. So, today, I want to talk a little bit about the resurrection. I want to talk about this Easter Sunday and this joy that we have. So, I'm wondering how you're feeling on this Easter Sunday. Maybe you're excited because it's Easter. There are Easter egg hunts and jelly beans and Peeps. Okay, maybe not Peeps. Peeps are pretty controversial candy. But is anybody feeling sad today? Or frustrated? Maybe disappointed with something? Sometimes we feel like we're supposed to be happy, when that's not really how we feel inside. But let me tell you something. God made every one of your feelings. All feelings are okay. And you don't have to pretend to be happy just because it's Easter or Christmas or your birthday or you're on a vacation. You can feel whatever, whenever you feel it. In our story today, some of these people will have big emotions. Some of these people in this part of the Bible, they have these big emotions, fear and anger and wondering and excitement. But as we hear the story, we're going to hear those different feelings, and we want to think about how can we understand and remember that those all are okay feelings. So this morning, let's go to our Bible passage. We are in Luke chapter 24, verses 1 through 12. And this is the aftermath. This is that Easter Sunday morning. So let's hear God's holy word. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they went to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly 2 men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be handed over to the hands of sinners and crucified, and on the third day rise again." Then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to tell them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Stooping and looking in, he saw the linen cloths by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened. So, as we think about this story and we think about there's feelings of confusion, feelings of doubt, feelings of joy and excitement. There's denial in there, right? These women go to the temple and they're the first to see it, or go to the tomb and they're the first to see it, and they return and they go to tell the apostles, and so many of them are confused, or they're not sure, or they don't believe, right? So as we think about this Easter story and we think about what it means for us, it means that we don't have to have those feelings of doubt, but even when we do, we can look to the people that were in the Bible and in this story of Jesus and recognize that even they had those doubts, right? Those are okay feelings to feel. Those are things that are natural, right? And I think sometimes we tend to see this Easter story as a story of great triumph and of great joy, and it is those things. But there's also the confusion and the worry. When you understand the time, the disciples were very worried that they were going to be persecuted next. They had been with Jesus. They had upset the balance of order, and the Pharisees were upset with them and seeking persecution against them. And they were very worried, right? When Mary Magdalene and these women, when they run back and they go to tell the apostles might have been holed up in a room and hiding from people that they were worried were going to come and arrest them as well. The story of Easter is so joyful, but we can't lose that it's so joyful because of what it overcomes. It's joyful because it overcomes our sin. It overcomes fear. It overcomes doubt. It overcomes disbelief. We go from the darkest of nights on this Good Friday into the joy and the light of Easter Sunday. So as we think about those stories, I think it's awesome and incredible to understand that God made our whole range of emotions and that we're not going to feel all of those things all the time. We're not going to feel like we're so joyful and in this Easter mood all the time. And even for those of us who you might be spending a holiday without a loved one for the first time, or someone couldn't make it home for Easter this year, it's okay to feel that mixed emotion and understand that there's some disappointment and some sense of loss or some sense of sadness, even on what's supposed to be a joyful morning. I think that when we start to tell people how they need to feel, and we start to not allow them to feel those feelings at times, and we expect them to feel what is joy or feel what is excitement, especially around something like Easter. We don't validate what they are feeling, and we don't allow them the space to be themselves or to experience those things. So as we go into this post-Easter world, right, our job is to share this joy and share this good news, but to also understand that we can feel all of these things. And in all of these things, we are perfectly and wonderfully made by God, and we are all people who had Christ die for their sins. So we're going to join our guest, and then we will come back, and I'll have some discussion questions and some response for you.
Hello, and welcome to 25 Live at Home this week. This week we are welcoming Mary Rothman. She is here from the Sewing for Others ministry at our church, but I am going to let her tell us a little bit more about herself, how long she's attended St. Andrew, and what she enjoys volunteering with here.
So I was born and raised into the church. My parents have attended St. Andrews for years. We started, over on Melrose, and I grew up in the church doing Sunday school, basic, ETC. I was a basic leader for a while. Now I'm a parent of a kiddo who attends St. Andrews, and I enjoy volunteering wherever I can. My daughter and I do the food market every Wednesday, every month. I volunteer at Bible school, Sewing for Others. Just anytime there's an opportunity to volunteer or a need and I'm available, I'm here.
So can you tell us a little bit about what Sewing for Others is, and who does Sewing for Others help?
So Sewing for Others was started in 2003 by Betty Oglesby and Margie Loomer. Betty had gone on a mission trip to Haiti and had seen that there was a need, and so she went home and made some dresses and got her friends and other sewers in the church involved. And we made dresses for the little girls and then shorts, which we paired with t-shirts for the boys, and they went with people on their mission trips to Haiti. And then, basically, as the church has a need for something that needs to be sewn, they come to us and ask us, hey, can you do this? And so we've done lots of different things. We make lap quilts that we donate locally to like the Bird House or DVIP. We do a big, large quilt that we like to give to every new habitat build. We have started making quilt kits that we send down to Guatemala. There's a sewing group down there where the women in Guatemala take a class and learn how to sew. And so each woman gets 2 quilt kits. One quilt they get to make and keep for themselves, and then one quilt they sell. And recently we stopped doing the shoe boxes and we started doing bags. And so when Nicole and Sarah came to us and said, hey, will you guys make bags? We started making bags. And we've done other things like mended the Christmas pageant costumes or made new angel costumes or anything that involves sewing. We're there.
I think sewing is a superpower. Sewing and carpentry. If I could do both of those things, I would feel like I was a superhero. So blessings to you for doing that. And I know the bags were for Gifts of the Heart, which many of you remember doing. And that's where we put the school supplies. And they made at least almost 300, I think, so far for us. So that's a lot of bags.
It's a lot of bags, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for that. So if you can tell us a little bit more about who can join Sewing for Others and what kind of things they can do to help.
Anybody can join Sewing for Others. You don't have to be female. You don't have to know how to sew. Any age can join. We do typically meet Friday mornings, the first Friday of every month from 9 to 11-ish. So we ask that you come to the meetings. If you can't come to the meetings and you want to sew at home and just drop your things off, you're welcome to do that. We have Pat Wells, who's one of our long-time members. Pat does not sew, but she lovingly puts together every quilt kit. She counts out all of the squares and matches them up and puts them together for our quilt kits. So yeah, anybody who has an interest is welcome to join us.
What kind of things are in the quilt kit?
In the quilt kits, there are fabric squares, which we have some. Myrna typically cuts all those fabric squares, but that's another non-sewer job. If you were interested in helping, you can cut squares. And then we also put 2 spools of thread so that the women can sew them together. And then we put some embroidery floss so that when you make your quilt, you have the bottom piece and then you have your top quilted piece, and then you use the embroidery thread to tie them together so that when you wash it, it doesn't shift around. And then we also put a large piece of backing fabric in there. For our quilt kits, we don't put the batting layer in there because it's so warm in Guatemala. But when we make the quilts for local use, there is a third layer that's sandwiched in between the top quilted layer and the backing that helps provide some extra warmth. Who else can? And what you can do to help Sewing for Others, if you are somebody who sews and you want to come and join us, or if you want, we can give you instructions to take home on how to make the bags. Or if you quilt and you want to donate a quilt, you're welcome to. We always need supplies. Everything that we use is donated. The thread, the floss, the fabric, everything is donated. And then if people don't donate materials, they're welcome to donate money, and we use that money to buy the batting and other supplies that we might need. Every quilt kit, we also send sewing needles and then straight pins, which are used to pin the quilt together. And so we will use funds donated to buy needles and pins as well.
Great. Sorry about that. Phone call came through on my phone. I was hoping it didn't disturb anything. Okay, so this week we celebrated Easter and the resurrection of Jesus. In the gospel that was read on Sunday from John, chapter 20, verses 1 through 18, John spends a lot of time talking about how Jesus was wrapped in linens or cloths. And this was something that the Jewish people did during that time when someone had died. And it showed respect and care for the person who had died. Do you feel like blankets and other sewn items that you create have kind of a similar meaning as they did in Jesus's time?
I mean, definitely. I think that, we make the quilts, they go to the birdhouse, they go to DVIVP, they go to Habitat. It's just a way to show love to somebody, that somebody took the time and cared about you enough to hand make this. A lot of the times we don't get to see the results of our sewing. We just get to hear the stories. And sometimes we're blessed with pictures, but yeah, it's just
Nice.
Thank
you very much. We appreciate your time. And like I said, your superpower that you and all the others for Sewing for Others give to us and to the community. So thank you very much. And
You're welcome.
Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining me back here again after speaking with our guest. So my challenge to you this week, and a possible response for you and your family this week, is to think about what kind of Easter traditions do you have? It might be an Easter egg hunt. It might be, the meal that you have or the family you see, whatever. For me, when I think of my family, some of my Easter traditions are around books, right? My family, I have 2 educators for parents. We loved reading. every night we read before we went to bed. And around Easter, my mom would always set out certain books. A couple of them that I remember vividly. If you were at our Easter worship services this year, you got to hear the tale of the three trees. And that is a story that I hold near and dear to my heart, and it is my all-time favorite Easter story. So that is one of my personal favorites. We also read The Easter Story by Carol Heyer. This would be another great book that if you are looking for something that tells the Easter story in a kid-friendly way through a picture book, I love this one. This is a great one as well. We also have The Legend of the Easter Egg. A couple years ago, I actually gave a children's message on the true story of the candy cane. This is by the same author, by Lori Wahlberg, illustrated by James Bernardin, and just a wonderful book that tells us how we can connect this Easter egg tradition to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So as you go into this week, I would wonder, could you and your family start a Easter tradition? So, all right, I have some discussion questions for us as you and your families go into this week. Hopefully you have a chance to sit down and have some table conversations. So, have you ever been to a funeral? How are people feeling? How were you feeling? How do you think the women were feeling when they came to visit Jesus' tomb? In the story, the disciples don't believe the women, but Peter runs to the tomb anyway. What do you think he was feeling as he ran? When the women and Peter saw that the tomb was empty, what do you think they felt? How would you feel? Can you feel more than one feeling at the same time? So I hope you all have a great week. I hope you create those Easter traditions. I hope that you have had a wonderful Easter. And one last time, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you back here next time. Bye-bye.